All right, today we are diving deep into a really powerful and honestly a very personal letter from the Apostle Paul. We're going through the first chapter of 2 Corinthians, and we're going to look at it not just as some ancient religious text, but as a total masterclass in how to lead and communicate, especially when a relationship is in crisis.
I mean, it's a question we all have to deal with at some point, right? And that question is hanging over this entire chapter. See, the church Paul founded in Corinth felt seriously let down by him. His credibility was totally on the line. And what we're about to see is his profound and kind of unexpected way of tackling that exact problem.
So, what was the big crisis? Well, it all started with some travel plans. Paul had promised he was going to visit the church in Corinth, but then he changed his mind. He canceled the trip. And to the Corinthians, this felt like a huge slap in the face. They started questioning everything about him, calling him fickle, unreliable. Basically, the trust was completely broken.
Now, if you were in Paul's shoes, you'd probably jump right into defending yourself, right? You'd lay out all your reasons, prove you are right. But Paul, he does something totally counterintuitive. He doesn't start by talking about his plans or his integrity. He starts by talking about suffering. He builds a bridge to them by talking about a shared human experience, getting through hard times.
He kicks things off with this huge idea, the God of all comfort. And his point is that comfort isn't just something God gives us to make us feel better. No, it's more like a resource. It's something we receive when we're in trouble so that we can turn around and give that same comfort to someone else who's struggling.
And this is Paul's logic, laid out perfectly. He's saying that suffering isn't meaningless. In fact, it's the very thing that equips you to actually help someone else. It's this amazing cycle. You go through something awful, you receive comfort from God, and that experience literally transforms you into a source of comfort for others.
And let's be super clear, Paul is not talking about just having a bad day. He wants the Corinthians to know his words come from a place of real, intense crisis. He talks about this specific ordeal in Asia, where things got so bad, he was pushed so far past his limits, he literally despaired of even staying alive. This isn't some theoretical, fluffy comfort he's talking about. It's a comfort that has been seriously pressure-tested.
And for Paul, hitting rock bottom had a point. It taught him a massive lesson in humility. It completely stripped away any sense of self-reliance and forced him to trust in something way bigger than himself, the God who can bring life out of death. His greatest suffering taught him where his true strength came from.
So, building on this foundation of shared struggle and radical trust, Paul finally pivots. He's ready to address the accusations against him head on. And he draws this really sharp line in the sand. He says he wasn't operating with fleshly wisdom, that worldly way of doing things, with clever strategies and maybe some hidden motives. Instead, he says he acted with godly sincerity, which is just simple, transparent, and comes straight from God's grace.
He really doubles down on this whole transparency thing. He's basically telling them, look, there are no secret codes in my letters. There's no hidden meaning you have to figure out. What you read is what I mean. Period. What you see is what you get. He's fighting their suspicion with just radical honesty.
Okay, so now we finally get to the heart of the whole conflict, that canceled visit. How does this idea of sincerity and trust in God explain why he changed his plans?
This was the specific charge they threw at him. The Corinthians saw him as someone who says yes and no in the same breath. You just couldn't trust his word. They accused him of making his plans according to the flesh, like he was just making promises and breaking them whenever it was convenient for him.
And Paul's response here is fascinating. He doesn't deny it. He essentially says, you're right. I did say yes, I was going to come. And then I said no, I decided not to. He starts by just meeting them right where they are, agreeing on the basic facts.
But then, this is where he makes such a brilliant turn. He's about to completely reframe the entire conversation. He shifts the focus away from his changeable human travel plans and puts it squarely on the unchangeable divine message that he carries.
This right here is the absolute climax of his argument. He says, look, my personal plans might change. My human no might be necessary sometimes, but that never ever changes the message we preach to you. The message about Jesus isn't yes and no. In him, every single one of God's promises finds its final, unchanging yes. He's pulling them back to the bigger picture.
And then he just keeps building the case, reminding them that their faith isn't even built on his personal reliability in the first place. It's built on what God does. God is the one who establishes them, who anoints them, who seals them, and gives them his Spirit as like a down payment, a guarantee.
Their security is in God's eternal yes, not Paul's temporary no.
So, after defending his character and completely reframing the argument, Paul finally reveals the real reason he canceled his trip.
Get this, it wasn't an act of being flaky or disrespectful, it was actually an act of love. He says he stayed away to spare you. The whole situation was so tense that if he had shown up then, the visit would have been painful and full of discipline. So out of pastoral care, he delayed. He gave them space. His no was actually for their benefit.
He wraps it all up by defining his entire leadership philosophy with this powerful contrast. He says, I'm not here to have dominion over your faith. That's about being a dictator, about control. No, I am a fellow worker for your joy. I'm your partner. My job is to work alongside you to help you flourish.
And that leaves us with this really profound question, doesn't it? Paul rebuilt trust not by proving that he was right, but by proving that he had their best interests, their joy at heart. So what would change in our own lives, in our own relationships, if our goal wasn't just to be right, but to actually work for the joy of others? It's an incredible lesson on leadership and love, all from a 2,000-year-old letter about a canceled trip.